Friday, February 13th, 1925. Something odd was happening in Arkham, Massachusetts. Typically, this would not be a surprise to the residents of the dreary New England town. Indeed, Arkham has always been well known for its strange, some would say supernatural occurrences. The nature of this particular circumstance, however, was anything but typical. It all began in the latest issue of Tales from Nevermore. A writer by the name of Virgil Gray described a journey he had taken in his dreams, a journey he claimed was not a work of fiction on his part. He wrote of a long, spiraling staircase, an unbearably hot pillar of sentient fire, a tree that came from the moon, and a curious talking cat, among other things equally difficult to believe. But it wasn't this extraordinary tale that first drew your attention. Soon after Virgil's tale was published, Tales from the Nevermore began to receive and publish letter after letter from those who had read Virgil's story and claimed to have experienced the exact same dream. Before long, the Arkham Advertiser picked up the story, and the news of this strange phenomenon reached the ears of experts. Virgil Gray was convinced to undergo therapy at the local asylum, and many more who shared in his writer's psychosis were committed as well. The prevailing theory among academics is that Virgil's dream felt so real that he could not separate fact from fiction, and his writing spreads his delusion to others like a form of shattered hysteria. You remain unconvinced. After all, there is much that is not known about the simple act of dreaming. Medical experts have widely differing theories in the state of one's brain during sleep. Recently, experts like Sigmund Freud have proposed that dreams are manifestations of one's subconscious desires, fears, or obsessions. Fortune tellers, for their part, have long believed that dreams can be sifted and interpreted in order to tell the dreamer's past or future. But if these theories are true, how could multiple parties, all from very different walks of life, have the same shared experience in their dreams? What if our modern understanding of sleep is all wrong? What if there really is a place our consciousness travels to when we sleep, a land of dreams that exists beyond our waking world? You and your companions have gathered together to get to the bottom of this strange phenomenon. If others in town can travel to another world in their dreams, perhaps you can too. You've recreated the circumstances of Virgil's journey perfectly. If all goes well, half of you will take the trip to this dreamland and back. The rest will stay in the waking world, studying your companion's sleep patterns to ensure nothing goes wrong. ... Hello everyone, and welcome to the One-Stop Co-op Shop. This is Colin, and today we are going to start a campaign of Arkham Horror, the card game. Yes, I don't have enough campaigns going on at the same time, I know. But I have really had this itch to play Arkham Horror, the card game, since I did my top 10 adventure games. And I thought, you know what, this entire campaign has now just completed, so that means I can use the full card pool, and it'll be really fun to see how this scenario goes. Also, what really intrigued me of this specific Dream Eaters campaign is that there's actually two separate campaigns that are going on simultaneously. So you'll only have 4 scenarios with 2 of my investigators and 4 other scenarios with the other 2 investigators. So you saw in the intro, I'm going to have these 4. So we've got Joe and we've got Patrice that will be together. And then we also have Luke and Tony as our other 2 investigators. So these 2 will be in the dream world, and these 2 will be in the waking world. So we're going to start with these 2 for this scenario, so I'll just set these guys aside. And I do want to mention 2 things here. One, I am going to be playing and showing lots of spoilers, so if you haven't played this and you don't want to see this, I don't recommend watching these. This is for if either you've played the campaign already and you want to see how someone else has experienced it, or 2, if maybe you're just kind of curious to see, well, do I really want to get into this game? You can see what one of the cooler, or I should say cooler, but newer campaigns are like, and maybe that can help you in deciding if you want to start collecting this game. Finally, I do want to mention I have pulled all of the decks for these 4 characters from Arkham DB. I'm not great at deck building yet with Arkham, and quite honestly, I wanted to make sure I used decks that were at least somewhat competent so that we can get through the scenarios, hopefully. So I'll put those in the links in the description below. But as we level up, you guys can certainly help me in choosing which cards to change, and we will create our own decks in that way. Hope that works. So without further ado, let's jump in setting up our first scenario. You can see here that the scenarios in this cycle can be played in 3 different ways. We are going to be playing it where it is an 8-part campaign, 4 for 2 of our investigators and 4 for the others. So what we need to do is each player should build a different investigator deck for each campaign. So we've done that, choosing one of the 4 investigators to be part of campaign A and the other one to be part of campaign B. So A will be Luke and Tony. We need to note that each campaign will have its own separate chaos bag, and we'll make sure to note that accordingly. And then from there, you can proceed to either Scenario 1A, Beyond the Gates of Sleep, on page 5, or Scenario 1B, Waking Nightmare, on page 10. We get to choose. I'm going to go ahead, because I have no idea, so I should also mention, I have not played any of these, so we are going to experience this first time together. You might be seeing this after you've played it and go, Colin, why are you making those decisions? Who knows? We'll see how it works. But we're going to start with Scenario A, Beyond the Gates of Sleep. Here we have our Campaign A set up. We're going to choose the standard difficulty, but I am going to include the taboo list. So that means things like the machete are 3 experience points now instead of being 1 that you can actually start with. I think the other one that's going to be a big one is Milan. Milan will actually have to exhaust him if we use him. You might see that in Joe Diamond's deck. But with that, if you see that I'm doing anything wrong, let me know so I can correct it in future scenarios. Here we have all of our chaos tokens, so I'll be putting that into my wife's homemade bag she made for me. I love it. It's this really nice knitted bag, so I will grab these and put them into my chaos bag of doom. Here we have Luke Robinson, the Dreamer. Kind of makes sense that he's doing this. It was many years ago when Luke discovered the entrance to the Dreamlands. Through the gift of an unusual box his uncle had left him, he learned of a way to travel to and from the Gates of Sleep. He has since spent the majority of his days wandering the land of dreams in search for an adventure. From the streets of Calphais to the Enchanted Wood, with its endless mysteries he wanders, unraveling the secrets of the land and of the myriad dreamers who reside there. Now an ancient chaos threatens to annihilate not only the waking world, but the world of his dreams as well. This is something Luke cannot allow. You can see here his deck size is 30. He can use Mystic cards 0 through 5, Seeker cards 0 through 2, and Neutral cards 0 through 5. We have to have the Gate box, and detached from reality is a weakness card, his specific one, and 1 random basic weakness. Here we have Luke Robinson's front side of his investigator card. We can see his willpower is 4, his intellect is 3, his combat is 2, and his agility is 3. He has a specific ability that says you begin the game with the gate box in play. You may play 1 event each turn as if you were in a connecting location and engage with each enemy at that location. Now this has been FAQ'd to confirm that when it says each turn, that would be each investigator's turn, just so you know. So if I can play an event during someone else's turn, I can actually do that in an adjacent location, adjacent connected. If he draws the star, he gets a +1 and then place 1 charge on the gate box. He has a total of 5 health and 9 sanity. Now, I'm going to give him 2 mental trauma right off the bat because I am going to purchase, or I'm going to put into my deck 2 of these cards, so I'll keep them to the side because they're permanent. And it says, when you purchase Arcane Research, suffer 1 mental trauma. After each scenario of a campaign, reduce the experience cost of the first spell card you upgrade before the next scenario by 1. So I'm actually going to be able to do that by 2 because I've purchased 2 of these, but that means I have mental trauma, so he's going to start every scenario with a minimum of 2 of the mental trauma on him at the start of the scenario. Here we have the Gate Box card, which starts in play. It states, we can exhaust Gate Box and spend 1 charge. It has a total of 3. To disengage from each enemy engaged with you, search your bonded cards for the Dream Gate, Wondrous Journey, and put it into play and move to it. Here we have the Wondrous Journey, and this one states, Dream Gate is connected to each other revealed location and vice versa. Enemies and investigators other than Luke Robinson cannot enter the Dream Gate. And then forced, at the end of the investigator's phase, set Dream Gate aside, out of play. If Luke Robinson is here, move him to a revealed location, and it's any revealed location. Awesome! It's a really cool thing. Now, the Dream Gate does have 2 sides. If we ever have to go here, that could be because one of our weaknesses, then we will. Finally, his random basic weakness is this narcolepsy. It says put narcolepsy into play in your threat area. You cannot take actions, trigger abilities, or play cards. You have to take an action to wake up and discard Necrolepsy. Forced, after you take damage or horror, discard Narcolepsy. Cool. Tony's tracked down low-life scum in every lousy corner of the world, but nothing could have prepared him for the thing he killed in Innsmouth. It had the form of a man, more or less, but it was covered in loathsome scales and slime, like some horrid creature of the deep. It stank of salt water, rotten fish, and blood. He should have let it go when it dove into the river, but he never let a bounty escape before, and he wasn't about to start then. Ever since, he'd found a new kind of dirtbag to hunt. Ordinary mobsters or otherworldly monster, Tony will take it down, if someone's willing to pay him for it, that is. Tony has a deck size of 30, and he can have a secondary class choice. At deck creation, choose one. I'll choose Guardian for him. Then we can have rogue cards level 0 through 5, neutral 0 through 5, and up to 10 level 0 through 1 events and or skills of your choice from that secondary class, the Guardian class. He'll have this bounty contracts into play. It's a permanent. He gets 6 bounties. After an enemy enters play, move 1 to 3 bounties from bounty contracts to that enemy to a maximum of that enemy's health. After you defeat an enemy with 1 or more bounties on it, move its bounties to your resource pool as resources. Cool. And then his random weakness is the stubborn detective, probably trying to track him down from one of the other things he's tried to kill. While stubborn detective is at your location, treat your investigator as if his or her printed text box were blank except for traits. Ugh. I realize I didn't show you the front side of his investigator card. So his willpower is 2, his intellect is 3, his combat is 5, and his agility is 2. You may take an additional action during your turn, which can only be used to engage or fight an enemy with 1 or more bounties on it. And then he's got his star ability, +2, place 1 bounty on bounty contracts. So it just gives you more of those. His health is 9 and his sanity is 5. For Scenario 1A, Beyond the Gates of Sleep, in player order, each investigator chooses and reads aloud one of the dream entries below that applies to that investigator. Neutral dreams may be chosen by any investigator. Each investigator must choose a different dream. If able, then proceed to setup. Tony will be our lead investigator and he's a hunter, so let's do the hunter's dream. You stalk your prey through a decrepit house, its halls smelling of mold and dust. The creature you hunt is an abomination from an unnatural world. It threatens humanity's very existence with its presence. You catch its uncanny shape entering one of the doorways upstairs. It cannot escape now. It is yours. But when you enter its den, you find only a dirty, cracked mirror and your own tired and troubled face reflected in the glass. Where could the aberration have gone? You are sure that is where it retreated to, and yet you turn your back to the entrance and are surprised to see a door where there was none before. Search your deck for a weapon card and play it, paying its cost. Let's go ahead and grab Tony's 38 Long Colt. It costs us 3, so we'll have 2 resources left. This is only used in his deck. It'll have 3 ammo. After you play this, you could play another one at no cost, but we're just going to start with this one. Spend 1 ammo. We can fight. You get +1 for each bounty on the attacked enemy. This attack deals +1 damage. If this attack defeats an enemy with 1 or more bounties on it, you can actually place another bounty on the bounty contracts. Just what I wanted to see. Luke is a mystic, so let's go ahead and read about his dream. You traverse an enchanted path full of color and vibrancy. Wisps of light hang in the air, bobbing up and down as you approach. With each step you take, the flora along the path atrophy, following no laws of nature. Flowers once bloomed in your wake, and now they shrivel as you pass. Vines wither and die. The wisps mock you of your ignorance, yet you do not slow your pace. As you look upon the fair trees, their leaves begin to fall. The once green grass is dry, brown, and cracked. But even should the whole forest die, it'll be worth reaching the other side. When you do, the trail ends abruptly at an ornate wooden door carved in the trunk of a great redwood. Search your deck for a spell card or a mystic card and play it. We'll grab the Sixth Sense card, so this will cost us 3 resources. We'll have 2 left. This says we can do an investigate action, investigate using our willpower instead of our intellect, and then if any of those symbols are drawn during this test, you may choose a revealed location connected to your location. You are now investigating as if you were at that chosen location instead of your location, and you can use either shroud value. It's a really cool ability, especially with the ability that he can already do this in an adjacent location. It can get pretty crazy with that Sixth Sense, so he'll have 2 resources left and our Sixth Sense will be out. Next, let's move to our setup. We just need to grab all these encounter cards. We have to put the 70 Steps of Lighter Slumber and the Caverns of Flame into play. Each investigator begins at the 70 Steps of Light Slumber. Then we need to set the following cards aside out of play: Randolph Carter, the laboring Gug enemy, the 2 double-sided enemies, and then each of the remaining locations. And then this is just simply stating that they have written text on the back. We'll just make sure we don't look at that. Then this scenario does not begin with an encounter deck in play. Set all of the remaining encounter cards aside in a single pile. They will be shuffled together at a later time to form the encounter deck. At the start of this scenario, there's no encounter deck. This means that the investigators cannot use abilities that interact with the encounter deck in any way. Additionally, Act 1A has the text, "Do not draw cards from the encounter deck during any mythos phase." At a certain point in the scenario, the investigators will be constructed to form an encounter deck, and this text will no longer be active. From that point onward, we will need to draw, and we can interact with it as normal. Here we have the 70 steps and the Cavern of Flame. The big thing to note is you can see this symbol here is on here, and this symbol here is on there, so that means these 2 locations are adjacent. And this states, you are no longer in your own world. A spiral of twisting stone steps hangs suspended in the aether, with no visible means of support. At the bottom of the steps is an island landing, also floating in the void, where a tall golden gateway leads into a brightly lit cavern. So we will both be placed into this location. Let's go ahead and flip it. So on this side, we have our shroud value of 1. That's not bad. We get to place 1 times the amount of investigators, so 2 clues here. When you leave the 70 steps, take 1 horror for each event or each card in your hand in the excess of 5. Choose and discard 1 card from your hand. You can do that as an ability, and that's a free action. So we got to make sure we don't have more than 5 cards in our hand before we move. Now over here, the Cavern of Flame, we cannot enter the Cavern of Flame unless all of the clues on the 70 steps have been discovered. So we've got to discover those first, and then we can move to here. Let's take a look at our agenda deck and our act deck. So our agenda deck here, we can place 19 doom before we have to move to the next card. Well, there's only 1 card, so you know that's our timer. Then over here we have our act deck. We have 1 all the way to 4, 1A to 4A, and that says entering the Dreamlands. So let's read our agenda card first. Journey through the gates. From your initial dream, you have been drawn into a familiar dreamscape, the same one that Virgil Gray traversed in his story in the Tales of Nevermore. Is this real, or is your mind simply conjuring what it expects to see? When doom is placed on this agenda during the mythos phase, if any investigators at the steps location, place 1 additional doom on that agenda. So yeah, they're going to push us out of those steps ASAP. Entering the Dreamlands. The door leading out of your initial dream takes you to a stone staircase. Thousands of different stairways join together here, forming an incomprehensible nexus of steps where worlds and stories join together. Where the stairs meet, they form a single spiraling pathway descending deeper into the land of dreams. Do not draw cards from the encounter deck during the mythos phase. If an investigator enters the Cavern of Flames, immediately advance. Finally, we just have our Beyond the Gates of Sleep. We're going to play on standard. So if we draw the skull, X is equal to half the number of your cards in your hand rounded up. If we get the cultist, X is the number of revealed enchanted woods locations. And then I don't know what to call this thing. This rock. -2 if you fail, and this is an attack or an evasion attempt against a swarming enemy, add 1 swarm card to it. And we'll talk about swarms as we see them. Since Tony is our lead investigator, let's go ahead and draw his 5 first. We'll draw our 5 up, and let's see what we have. We've got some Overpower. Prepare for the worst. Although we have a weapon out, we might not need that. Sleight of Hand. On the Hunt, I like that, and Vicious Blow. So I like Vicious Blow for sure. I like On the Hunt for sure. Sleight of Hand, I don't think I really need. Prepared for the worst, I don't think I need. And Overpower, I mean, honestly, our attack is 5. I might mulligan this one as well. So we'll keep these 2. Let's go ahead and shuffle these back in and draw 3 new ones. We've shuffled up. Let's grab 3 new cards. So we've got Emergency Cash, giving us some more resources. Swift Reflexes, fast. That's awesome. And our Tennessee Sour Mash. Great. Actually, that's a really, really solid first hand for Tony. Next, let's do Luke. So we will grab 3 plus 2 more is 5. And we've got Drawn to the Flame, great starting one. Storm of the Spirits, not bad. A Ward of Protection, Eureka, and Uncage the Soul. Okay, I like Eureka. I like Ward. I like Storm. I like Drawn. I like all 4 of these. I don't have a spell or ritual in my hand, so let's go ahead and mulligan this one, and we will draw 1 new card. We'll go ahead and pick up our hand again, and then let's add our 5th card to our hand, the Holy Rosary. +1 to our willpower. That's great. That'll be super helpful. So there we have it. I think we're all set up and ready to go. I hope you'll join me in the playthrough. Thanks so much for watching. I will see you at the next stop.